Good afternoon. Nice to be here for a worthy cause. It was suggested to me that I might be able to express how our cultural interests and cultural way of life are becoming impacted by climate change. And in order to express that concept in a meaningful way, it's helpful for you to understand who we are and what Native American culture not only represents, but how we exist. Makah is the southernmost band of Nuchanuth. Our spiritual beliefs we call Klukwali. Klukwali provides us the means to transfer our spiritual understanding to the physical world. And in that process of transferring, we understand that there's a balance that exists in this world. In our chief's area, in his huhutlio, everything is balanced, and it's our responsibility not only to learn how to keep that balanced, but to conduct ourselves in a manner that contributes to that balancing. As the head of my family, I'm trained as from a young man what it means to be responsible to the family, therefore providing the tribe stronger standing. So this concept of climate change and its impacts to our spiritual beliefs, we are recognizing firsthand. How we express ourselves on noteworthy events is we potlatch. We potlatch for a name giving, we potlatch for a wedding, we potlatch for a memorial. And for an instance like this would be a gathering of nations. And normally I would say a prayer asking the Creator, the Lord above, help my words ring true, help my words to be meaningful, help people to remember what we gathered here today to witness. So that's the basis of a potlatch, because we don't record history in a written form. We pass history on in an oral manner. So as were I the host of this, and I'm forgetting my manners, thank you for the invitation. I'd like to thank the host for coordinating this. In Indian country, when you are invited to an important event, you do your best to honor that invitation out of recognition not only to the importance of the issue, but for the dedication and the time that was exerted by the people who find this issue so important. So that's when you hear tribal reps say, I'm here to honor the invitation, that's what they're saying. There's that whole area of dedication. And so for your folks' dedication to this issue, Klako. Klako! So as we began to understand what the potlatch means, I have a number of Indian names. And when I'm acting appropriately at a potlatch name giving, I stand my name up. People from west coast of Vancouver Island, I have a number of names, but my most senior name, the name that draws the most responsibility there's a hierarchy as you get older. When I was a younger man, I received one of my dad's name. As I proved more capable, I got a more influential name with more responsibility. As the head of the family, I'm in charge of my extended family. At a potlatch, when I stand the name up, that means I'm singing a song in support of the event so people will remember it. I'm putting my dancers on the floor. There's one dance that belongs to the song, and the song always belongs to a name. And why this is so critically important is because as we transfer our spiritual understanding of Klukwali into the physical world, Klukwali is also the means we govern our actions. You have to be, like I couldn't apply for Klukwali my uncle would have to sponsor me in. It couldn't be my dad or my brother. And so there's a social control to this. If I act inappropriately, the Klukwali or Council of Elders, they don't go after me, they go after my uncle. And so that there's more motivation for me to act more appropriately. But why this is so important is because I'm beginning to express to you the sense of how important potlatch is to us, how we view the world in an interconnected manner, and that is our spiritual belief. We believe that in our dances, for example, I don't know if you folks have been fortunate enough to see a mask dance or a wolf dance, when our dancers dance with a mask that looks like a wolf's head. And when we get to the edge of the dancing floor, we have our dancers on the side are female, and they're called sideliners. And the reason they're there is because they're keeping the spirit or the medicine of our transformation, they're keeping it pure, they're keeping it holy, they're not letting outside forces into the dance floor to contaminate the dance floor. And when our wolves get to the edge of the dance floor and they spin around and they come back and they go into back to the other direction, they do that for two reasons. One is they ran out of floor to dance on, and the other is we're displaying to everybody, this is our power, this is how easy we can transfer from the spiritual world into the physical world. So that's why the dance floor will be blessed with Eagle Down as an example. So the reason that's important is because in order to participate in a potlatch, the head of the family will not only put his dancers on the floor with his singers and his sideliners, everybody in the family has a responsibility. So it's a socio-economical mechanism that provides us the means to conduct our cultural interests in addressing a very important event, and such as this. And so that's why potlatch is so important to us. That's how we show our spiritual strength. We have mask dances. We have hamatsa dancers. A hamatsa dance is the family will make up a hamatsa dance, and they're inviting the wild man in from the environment, and they're showing to everybody, see how strong my family is. We can bring in, and I was taught that it's more than the wild man, it's the environment, it's nature. We can control nature when we conduct our business appropriately. See, here's the proof. And that's how all of this, when you see the dancing, and it's easy to understand when you go to, potlatches can last for 2 days. It was the popular author Sherman Alexie's would say, one of the most frightening things I ever heard at a potlatch was when somebody hands a microphone to a tribal member and the tribal member says, "Thank you for this opportunity. I only have a few words I'd like to share with you." So for Sherman Alexie's, that's good stuff. So I'm establishing this cultural perspective, this cultural foundation of who we are. And now I'm going to start shifting gears here. That cultural application or understanding provides the foundation of how at Makah and with other tribal governments we're able to declare ourselves sovereign and indigenous to the area. And in our treaties provide us, we reserve the right to be Makah. And we went to the federal government, actually they came to us. But what we said was, we'll work with you, but we deserve the right to maintain our cultural identity. So when you're addressing treaties in Washington State, it's more than fishing rights. It's more than the right to collect salal and berries in open and unclaimed areas. It's the legal vehicle that provides us the means to maintain and to continue to build on that our cultural identity. And so now I'm shifting into, through the treaty as a legal vehicle, that inherent sovereign authority now is shifting, and it's manifesting itself into tribal governments. And in tribal governments now, we have the ability to work with our federal and state partners. With our federal partners, we're able to use every tool at our disposal. Trust responsibility is a very effective tool, and that's the federal government's legal and moral obligation to make sure tribal governments are being treated fair in a number of transactions. At Makah, we've been successful using that leverage to work with the Coast Guard, and through government-to-government consultation, we were able to express to Coast Guard through an OPA 90, Oil Pollution Act of 1990, a regulation in that rule was the Marine Salvage and Firefighting Rule. The Coast Guard was updating that rule, and what we expressed to them was, we have treaty interests here. And so we worked through the rulemaking. As the Coast Guard published the rule, they only calculated cost to business to implement the rule. And so we introduced to them your derelict and your trust responsibilities in Makah Tribal Council by not including potential damage to the environment. So they had to, as we helped them learn that lesson, they had to readjust their focus. And as it turned out, the Coast Guard headquarters called us and asked us, just as we were moving into the final rulemaking, what can we do to address your interests? And we expressed, put in the words treaty rights and trust responsibility in the rule, and we'll take it from there. And what came back to us was, Congress will never pass that language. It empowers tribal governments too far. But what we will do is, if you can take this issue to your state capital and pass a state bill, we will not view it as an effort to preempt federal authority. So I called up Dale Jensen at the Spills Pro, and I said, man, we've got the tugboat if we can pass a bill. And we did, and we worked with the state legislature. And that's a form of oil pollution mitigation. And there are any number of actions, and shame on me for not knowing, more than 50 engagements and more than 10 times that tugboat, which is paid by industry, mind you, at over $2 million a year. It's had over 10 instances when it actually connected a tow line to a stricken vessel, and I count each one of those 10 as an oil spill that we prevented. So, what I'm hoping to help you folks understand is when we talk about impacts to our cultural way of life and impacts to our traditional practices, at Makah we have a robust cultural awareness. I have a whaling name, and that may not be very popular here, but what I'll tell you is that whaling name is over hundreds of years old. My Indian name, and I would only share it with you if we're at a potlatch, but my Indian name means strength of spirit, to keep the canoe and the harpoon throw straight. And so this is fair. I'll close with this. My dad did a lot of work on working with the tribe to reconvene our whaling rights. And we believed at the zenith of our quality, at the peak of our spiritual understanding and influence, we believed once we proved worthy and once we proved capable physically and spiritually, we believed that the whale understood we were worthy. And then the whale would, in communicating with us, the whale would say, take my spirit, let my spirit carry you, take my body as sustenance to your people, keep Makah strong. And so I asked my dad, if we believed we can communicate with the whale in those days, if we believed that the whale knew how to talk to us, why can't we do that anymore? And my dad looked at me and said, it's because the ocean isn't healthy. The ocean can't act as that medium to deliver that spiritual message. And I've suggested to our tribal council, maybe what that means is we have to work harder to get the oceans healthy before we can get to that point of holding our head up to say, that the best of what we did, our best of our best, our spiritually pure warriors were our whalers. There's a story about a Canadian chief who took hundreds of whales. And I hope I don't offend you. This is just our perspective. And so this is something how we can all learn, because the Northwest is so diverse. I mean, it's easy to take up the cause against the Dakota pipeline and say, we're standing for tribal rights because they did it. But when it's a macaw whaling issue, it's like, damn, those guys are savages. So my point being is, in order for us to keep this balance of clue quality, you folks have a responsibility as well. We're reaching out. And the end goal is this balance. The end goal is, that's the only way we're going to address climate change. So I've gone on long enough.